any second. There we go. Facebook, hi, it's me, your girl, Linda Marcus Smith here with Comic Spot interview 833. Yeah, trying to make it to 1,000 by the end of the year, but that's not going to happen. So forget about that. So just kick back, enjoy. These are brought to you for the sole purpose of you getting to know a comedian off stage behind any kind of mask, literally, figuratively, and get to know them, what they're like off stage. So you can go, that guy was pretty cool. I want to go see Antonio Hernandez because he was cool. I saw him on the podcast. That's one reason. And the other reason is so you at home can just have some entertainment. So kick back, relax, and watch the show. Nothing that's said is meant to offend anybody, but these are tough times. So just know that everything that is said is not censored. On this show, anything goes. They have total freedom of speech. It's not like the military show I just did where a couple of people said the wrong words anyway. So this is different. You don't have to worry about what you say. And neither do I. So there we go. So I would like to say that Comic Spot interviews can be found on YouTube, on my YouTube, comedian Linda Marcus Smith. Please click subscribe and help me. I've interviewed 833 people and I have like 300 people that have subscribed. So I'm not doing that great, all right? I get it. So yeah, subscribe to it. That would really help me. But the show today is brought to you by my sponsor, the veterans of comedy.com. Will C. and Eric Knowles, they started it for military veterans who do comedy. So you guys, anytime you're looking to hire a comedian around the world, private or corporate event or military event, go on over to the veterans of comedy.com and look for my video and hire me and forget everybody else. No, just kidding. Hire a veteran if they served our country and they're serving jokes, hire them, you guys. That would be wonderful. And when you get done hearing my guest today, you're going to want to hire him. I adore him here in the Las Vegas community. You will too. And now's your chance to get to know him. So he is a great up and coming comedian. And he's also the whitest Mexican you're ever going to get to know, ever. And his name is Antonio Hernandez. Welcome him to the stage right now on Comic Spot. Antonio Hernandez. Woo! Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Fabulous. How are you?
I'm doing great.
What's it feel like to be on the show with a geriatric?
I'm getting used to it. I'm going to have to tweak my lingo a little bit to make it more suitable.
Oh my gosh. So you're here in the Vegas community. How long have you lived here?
About maybe 2.5 years now.
Kind of sort of like me. Where did you come from?
This most recent time I moved from California, and I've kind of lived all over, but that was the most recent spot.
Me too. Where in California did you move from? I moved from, let's call it Sun City, Temecula area, Inland Empire. Where about you?
Santa Barbara.
Wow, I love that city.
Yeah, it's very expensive.
Yes. So what is your day job? Do you have a day job or is comedy supporting you at this point?
I wish comedy was supporting me, but I do have a day job. I work full-time in the weed industry. I make extracts and stuff like that.
Super. And here in Vegas, what a great place for weed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've been in the industry for about 6 years now. I got started in Colorado, and then that's the reason I went out to California, and then I moved out here as well.
Now, in the 6 years in the weed industry, how has it changed?
Well, it's gotten more, I guess, formal and regulated now, so it runs more like a legitimate industry. In the early days, it was very Wild West type, very, a bunch of people who used to sell weed back in the day got a license and just kept doing what they were doing. So it was really sketchy, really dangerous in the early years, but it's definitely gotten a lot more, like I said, formal, more, it runs more like a legitimate industry now.
Wonderful. So you made it through the pandemic here in Vegas. Wasn't Vegas weird, shut down?
Yeah, I mean, but it wasn't shut down as long as I thought it would be. It was only a few months and they kind of opened it back up. I know there are places around the country who are still pretty much shut down for the most part.
Yes.
The casinos was a really weird one because I'm a degenerate gambler. And so it kind of helped with my addiction to gambling because I couldn't go out to a casino anymore.
Yes, I love to gamble too. You'd never know it by looking at me, but I love the slot machines.
Oh, really?
I
It's
do.
very, very stereotypical for your age.
Yes,
If
it
I'm,
is. It is. So what's your favorite thing to do when you gamble?
I like blackjack. Blackjack is my game. I've gotten pretty good at it. I know it's kind of frowned upon, but I can count pretty easily, so I do pretty well.
Ah, so you have a good, really quick mind, mathematically, thinking fast, thinking on your feet. Do you think those 21 skills that you have, blackjack skills, help you with your comedy?
Yeah, probably. They're probably related in certain ways because I do see that when I'm on stage and I have to come up with something on the spot that I do pretty well. You know, it's when I have to sit down and write something is when I overanalyze it and end up not writing anything at all because I always feel like it's ridiculous.
Absolutely. It's so hard to just write, but when you have material and you have a live audience and you get that, like sometimes the audience will give you a look and you'll come up with a whole different way to go with the joke. And
Yeah.
that's so much easier than sitting at home with four walls. I can barely write at home.
Yeah, yeah. I have a really hard time. I just look at a blank sheet of paper for hours and then get angry and want to go gamble again.
Oh my gosh. So let's talk about Antonio Hernandez through the ages. I know that you're very old, that's obvious, not me. But when you were growing up, were you funny or did you come into funny late in life just to cope or to get the girls? Or what's your story? Everybody has a story.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of comics, they always say like they were the class clown and, they would always sit in a circle and make their friends laugh. I was actually a very shy kid, a very socially awkward. So I was never the class clown or anything, but I got obsessed with stand up pretty early on in life. And, with the rough childhood, fights within my family and stuff, I would try to break the ice by reciting stand up routines that I've heard before. And so that's kind of the first, I guess, inkling that I wanted to do stand up is because it was a good way to break the tension within my family and just allow, everybody to have a laugh and calm down a little bit. And then from there, I've only been in stand up about a year and I've slowly developed what stand up actually means to me, which, it hits a very special place within my childhood because it was a way to cope, a way to escape and stuff like that. And now uh, I'm on the other side of it and I can, look down at the audience and when they're laughing, it brings me back to watching stand up myself and being an audience member, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you were growing up and you memorized, whose did you memorize?
A bunch of them. It was the early ones were George Lopez, Christopher Titus was a big one, and then other guys like Tom Segura, um, Dave Attell was a big one, and
Wow.
then yeah, and then just in the last maybe 5 6 years, I've been obsessed with Doug Stanhope. He's probably one of my favorites right now.
Wow. Okay, so explain Doug Stanhope. What is it about him that makes him your favorite right now?
Um, I think it's because he's really smart, and you wouldn't know it immediately, like as he's going into a bit. You kind of just think he's being silly with it and whatnot, but then by the end of the bit, uh, he just has a punchline or a overall meaning to what he was talking about that actually makes you think a little bit. And that's what I really like. Like I used to love George Carlin and Bill Hicks, and he's kind of in the same vein, just still living, I guess.
Yes, I love George Carlin. I'll have to go listen to Doug Stanhope. I've never watched him.
Oh, he's great. Like I said, he's probably my favorite because he's very dirty, and he talks about, having a fantasy while he was watching football and, performing gay sex on one of the players and all of this, but then he wraps it up nicely on the whole, you know, uh like statements that football players try to make, like with, like social political stuff, and he just kind of puts a nice bow on it at the end.
My goodness, I'll have to watch it. So, describe for those who don't know your comedy yet, and I certainly can't remember who has what style of comedy, but
Hmm.
would you describe what your style of comedy is? Like, is it a blend between this person and that, or is it observational, sarcasm, intellectual? What's your style?
I would say a lot of it comes from just what I've lived. You know what I mean? I have a long bit about how I used to be addicted to morphine. I talk about, my sex life and stuff like that, my parents. So it's a lot of just coming from me. I have a hard time writing like one-liners or observational stuff because, I'm a 26-year-old nobody. I feel like not many people care about what I have to say on a like social political standpoint. So I try to avoid that. And
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
just a lot
See,
of
I feel that way about myself. Like, who wants to hear what I have to say? I'm old. So it's
I mean,
interesting that you're saying that at your age.
yeah. But I mean, the more you or the longer you live, just naturally you know more. And so people are more interested in older people and what they have to say because it's coming from a very interesting perspective of living however many years you've lived. But
Wow.
like I said, once they find out my age, they're just like, you know nothing. You're a child.
I've always found you very interesting. And I think that when I watched you on stage, I would have to say I always want to hear more. You don't there's some people like, okay, I've heard enough, thank you,
Mhm.
but not with you. You leave people wanting more. So
Oh,
have you worked on that?
I mean, that's interesting because my girlfriend has said the same thing to me because she comes out to my shows all the time and she hears the same bits, every day. And she always tells me that, a lot of my bits they leave off on a spot that she seems like it shouldn't, and you should keep going with it or expand on it or something like that. So I have been trying to do that. It is hard though because I once you memorize a bit, it's hard to rewrite it or restructure it because you're stuck on the same lines that you've always memorized. And so I'm
That's
having a hard time doing that. But that is something that I want to look more into and really try to, you know, e- e- expand on the bits that I have.
well, I'm saying it from the point of view that when you're up there talking, I never get tired of listening to you. I can't remember what you talk about, but I never
Mhm.
get tired of listening to you. And I always want to hear more. And I didn't mean it like you need to write more. I just want to hear you again and again.
Oh,
You're likable, you're funny, you do something on stage that is unique to yourself. You're not like other comedians on stage where it's like, okay, is his time up? I'm not like that when you're up there.
yeah. I think it's more of my voice. I have a very, very deep voice, very comforting voice. But once you actually pay attention to what I'm talking about, you'll change your mind and you'll just be like, all right, get off stage already.
So, what is it that got you to get up on stage your first time? Like, what made you go from, oh, I memorized all of these people's comedy and said it, and what actually made you jump off the edge and say, I'm going to risk getting rejected and look like a fool? I mean, that's a big step, especially for a young person. Like old
Uh,
people, we don't care if we jump out in front of a car, but young people.
yeah, I mean, I've wanted to do stand up for a long time, but I've always, like I said, I've been a very socially awkward guy, so it's been hard for me to, rip the band-aid off and just get on stage. And I've been writing for years, years before I ever did stand up. I would write down my thoughts. And then, yeah, after moving out here, I quickly jumped on the Facebook page and saw shows out here. And I don't know what it was exactly, but it was just, it was time, and I just felt it. And then my first time I went out to Noreen's, and that was the first time that I ever got on stage.
Don't you love that place?
Yeah, it's great. I wish they had more regular audience members because comics are really hard to impress sometimes.
That's
That would make it better.
Yes. I mean, you can get those, crusty old veterans. There's a lot of veterans that sit there, and, the regular customers that didn't even know the show was going to be tonight. When you can get them to turn around, a chair around, you feel so good.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's why I like performing at Wise Guys because it's just a bunch of regular audience members, and so you can really see if your material will work in front of a normal audience, and then you can take it back to a place like Noreen's or Free Zone, and then cut your teeth on it and see if you can make the comics laugh.
Yes, I love Wise Guys. You get regular people. They pay $5 a piece to come and watch an open mic, and they shuffle in and sit way up front, which
Yeah.
is like the best thing for successful comedy shows when you have those that want to sit way up front.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's the best. So what is it that, how do you, when you do write, what is it that inspires you? Like for me, just so you get a drift of what I'm asking, when I write, I always start with a word or a punchline. I know what my whole thing, what word I'm talking about, or I know what the punchline has to be, and I create a whole thing for the joke. So I start with the end of the joke and then develop the first. How do you do your writing?
For me, it's actually very similar to that, where a
It?
lot of the times I'll think of a funny phrase or a punchline or something, and then I'll develop the bit around it. There have been a couple times where I have a concept, just pretty much the premise, and then I'll go through and, I'll have a whole list of analogies that I can use within this premise, and then I start to structure where it's going to go from there. But I found that doing that when you have just an idea, finding a bunch of analogies to go with it actually really helps me because it gets my mind flowing and, comparing certain things to other things and how do you make it funny, and then, a couple tags here, and then you end on the big punchline. I know
Love
people
that.
I know people listening to this who know my comedy, they're going to be like, where is the punchline? I have a hard time with that.
Oh, well, you might think you do, but I think your comedy is fabulous. And like I said, I can't remember what you talk about. I just remember how fabulous you are. So I stare at people and I concentrate, and I'm looking for joke structure. And I always feel like you give strong joke structure and great likability and connectability with the audience. So
Okay, I
that's
appreciate that. I do
it's
appreciate it.
it's not fluffernutter. I really feel it. So it's a joy getting to know you. Do you come from a large family or a small? Where are you in the birth order? All that happy jazz.
um, I'm I'm Mexican, so we come from big families. My dad, my dad is the oldest of 12, and I am the middle child of 5. And, so all my cousins and all of that, we, grew up together. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting. And I feel like it's kind of the reason why I was drawn to comedy, because I was the middle child. And, I was, as the stereotype goes, I was the forgotten child. And so there was something that I had to find to occupy myself while I was, in a sense, raising myself. So yeah,
So
a
I have
really
a question. I have a question for you. You know how old I am? I'm 70.
okay.
So if I tell you that I memorized every single joke of a certain comic, I hardly ever have said this. Which comic do you think that I quoted when I was a kid?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say it would have to be in the realm of maybe Lenny Bruce or Joan Rivers.
Nice
Maybe
guesses. Nice guesses. It was Bill Cosby.
Bill Cosby. That was going to be my next one.
Some of those, he used to come out with these big records,
Oh
like
yeah,
why is there air? Have you ever heard that?
yeah, yeah,
Oh my gosh. And I memorized every single line of everything he ever said.
yeah. That's amazing. I mean, I was the same way with Christopher Titus's first special, the Norman Rockwell is Bleeding. I pretty much I can still to this day pretty much recite the entire special because I listened to it over and over again. And the reason he was so influential on me is because, he had a rough childhood. His mother was in mental institutions his entire life. His dad was a drunk and kind of abusive, and he made it funny. He made his life story funny. And, I didn't grow up as bad as he did, but in the moment when I knew my childhood was kind of going south, I was like, how can I make this funny? You know? And
Oh,
so he was a big inspiration for me.
that's so cool. Have you ever gone to see him live and met him?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
cool. It would be cool if you did a video where you're mouthing the words or you're reciting, looking into the camera and reciting every word that he did. And he'd probably, I know people that have done that, and then the celebrities write him back and go, "Wow, I can't believe you did that."
Yeah. Yeah.
It'd be funny to see.
I've always thought that it would be funny to, in a sense, like do sketches based on certain stories that he's told and kind of make it, the live action version of the story that he's telling. I felt like that would be funny and interesting. You know,
Yes.
maybe that's how I'll meet him.
Yeah, he travels around with his wife. They do comedy together.
Hmm.
Do you know who his wife is by name?
Not by name, but I vaguely know about her.
Yeah, they have very different styles of comedy. I love the comedy couples that are out there, like him and his wife, and Rich Voss and his wife, and
Yeah.
Tom Cotter and his wife. It's fun to watch that when they travel together, and then you get a different glimpse of a marriage from how they both bash each other.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and then there are those kind of comedy power couples because people always say that dating a comedian, if you're a comedian, it never works. But there are a couple examples out there where they're both really funny and successful. So it always makes you wonder.
Yes. So tell me about your thing for Dave Attell's comedy. Why is that?
He just has, for me, he has such a unique delivery, which I love, and they're very. I can compare him almost to like a Mitch Hedberg, where he's very one-liner, very quick. And that's what I like, probably because I can't do that myself, or it's very hard for me to do just quick one-liners. So I admire it so much. And he just, yeah, he's one of the few comedians that leave me in tears when I watch him. And I feel like
Really?
I feel like he's so underrated as well. Like everybody in the comedy community knows him, but outside of that, he's never been mainstream, which I feel like he should because he's
Wow.
brilliant.
So can I tell you how I met him?
Oh yeah, please.
So I'm in New York, minding my own business. I never mind my own business. I was in New York and I was at the Olive Tree, which is above Greenwich Village Comedy Club. It's a restaurant
Okay.
and it's where everybody hangs out. And he's in the corner. So I decide that I'm going to get a picture with him. Well, he's not the picture taking kind of guy, really. So I went back there and I said, my coach was also your coach once, Gladys Simon. And he goes, oh, wow. And I go, yeah, so let's get a picture. Like you don't have a choice. Let's get a picture. Now, what I need you to do is I need you to really act like you want to be with me. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, be with me. Because I got people to make jealous. Ready? Click. And I got the greatest smile out of him.
No,
And
that's
then
great.
the next day, this is all I'll say. This isn't about me. I just want it because you like David Tell. So the next day, I'm uptown in the 87s, 87 West Side, not down in Greenwich Village at all. And I'm sitting minding my own business again at a coffee shop, and he walks in. And I said, well, which one of us is stalking the other one? And he just said, hi, lady. And I go, remember I saw you? He goes, yeah. And I go, he goes out of the place and he comes back in a couple minutes later, probably dawned on him, comes back in and he goes, anything on the menu that you want, you can have.
Oh, wow. That's great.
And then he took off with a bunch of guys. They had a place to go. It was so sweet of him to offer me anything on the menu.
Yeah, that's really cool. He seems like that kind of genuine guy because he is very uh he's humble and he's very timid, it seems like. And
Very.
that's awesome. I've met a few comedians, but
Who
I'm
have you
just
met?
not
Let's drop some names.
I've met Mark Normand. I've met Tony Hinchcliffe and Todd Glass as well.
Wow.
But I
Okay, so
never
tell me about meeting them. Tell me how that went and what you thought.
it was always just a really quick interaction after one of their shows where I kind of, shook their hand, said hi, loved the show, telling them that I want to do stand up because this was before I did it. But nothing crazy. And I wish I had gotten pictures with them, but in moments like that, you know, I just never think to pick up the phone, and actually take a picture. So I know I'm a young guy. That thing should be glued to my hand, but it really isn't.
Oh my gosh. So who has impressed you the most of all the comics that you've bumped up against in before comedy or here in Vegas or when you do road gigs? I assume some people have taken you on the road there because you're that good. Not yet? They
Nothing.
need to grab you and take you on the road.
Yeah. Well, now I have a sparkling endorsement from you, so maybe it'll start happening.
Because the whole Vegas community hinges upon what I say.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. We're speaking it into existence here.
Let's hope so.
So who's come alongside? You said AJ Rivera's coming over. Who's come along to mentor you or give you tips that really helped or whatever?
I think in the Vegas scene, the biggest one would be Sam Lunstead.
Oh,
Him and I have talked a lot about comedy. I know he's I think like 4 or 5 years in. I'm just about a year. And so he's definitely, anytime I talk to him, he always gives me something very small that I've never thought about. And it kind of keeps, it sticks with me. And it's something that I think about as I, do shows at different places or even writing stuff like that. Like, he's kind of the one who turned me on to the laughs per minute. He's like,
yes.
how many laughs do you get per minute? Because we were talking about Wise Guys, and I was like, oh, a 3 minute set, I can do that, easy. And then he just looks at me, he goes, but can you? And have you thought about laughs per minute? He goes, do you want to get one a minute or do you want to get two or three? And then before I went, on stage at Wise Guys, it really made me think of what set I wanted to do. And, if I could really hit, more than just three laughs, in the entire set. So,
Wow.
yeah, Sam Lundstedt, he's kind of taken me under his wing, and I really appreciate it because I love his comedy. I think he's an amazing guy, and he's just genuinely sweet. So
He is.
yeah,
You can't, if you can't get along with Sam Lundstedt, you got problems that Prozac can't help.
I agree.
He's so amazing. He's such a real guy
Yeah,
and he really cares.
yeah.
So that's a great tip. Joan Rivers, the great Joan Rivers, may she rest in peace because she's not living anymore.
Mhm.
She was able to get 6 to 10 laughs a minute for an hour straight.
Wow, that's amazing.
In that realm of laughs per minute, she's my hero.
Yeah, definitely. Because for me, I could probably in a 3 minute set, maybe 9 or 10 laughs.
That's fabulous.
It's
It's
not
so
bad.
hard in 3 minutes to showcase yourself. You can't really get in a groove.
Yeah, and the same for me because I tell these, decently long stories about myself. And so in a 3 minute set, I'm either rushing through certain punchlines or, I just won't get to the end of it because I run out of time. And so
Yes,
but going up there, I mean, it's a good skill because you have to know how to get in and get out in just those 3 minutes.
yes, that's so true. So, what's the silliest thing that's ever happened to you when you've been on stage or in the audience? Without saying names or names of clubs, what's something that still cracks you up to this day?
It would have to be one time it was like a month or two ago. I was at Urban Lounge, which is a great spot, and my jokes weren't going over very well. There weren't that many people in the audience, but uh, like about halfway through my set, when a joke didn't land, there was one guy in the back of the room who just went "fuck him," and that threw me for a loop. And so I tried to ignore it, and then a couple more jokes didn't land, and he kept saying it, just kept going "fuck him," and then eventually I had to address it. And so one time a joke didn't hit, and he didn't say it, so I said it, and then it got the audience kind of on my side a little bit. But I think about that all the time because it was so out of left field, something I would never expect from a heckler, because it seemed like he was kind of on my side and he was with me on saying, hey, fuck the audience.
That's
But that
so interesting that you notice that because all too often, even 40-year comedians assume that a noise or a sound or a word is a fight or
mhm,
negating their comedy. And, like it's not necessarily the case. It could be that the audience is actually listening and adding. And if you listen, maybe you'll come up with a new punchline that's funnier. Because sometimes the audience is there because they think they can do comedy. So they're there to blurt something out funny. And you just, okay, I'm taking that joke now. That's my new punchline.
yeah, and I definitely understand it because when I'm out at these mics or whatever, I'm the guy who's always sitting near the front, and I watch everybody because that's what I want from the rest of the crowd, is to sit there and watch me as well. And so I really
Talk to
do.
me about that. That is so interesting. I didn't know you did that.
Oh yeah. I mean, the only times I'm not sitting there is if, like, I'm running to the bathroom or running outside for a cigarette or something. But I like to, because I like all these guys. I like everybody who's in the scene. So I want to give you the attention and, in a sense, let you know what I think about it. So if I'm sitting there and I'm not laughing, I've been paying attention the whole time, but I'm just not laughing. And so, but it's because I want the same. I want that same, in a sense, like that level of respect, is to sit there and support me because I support you. You know, and but going back to the heckler thing, it's like I understand why people get so aggressive towards hecklers, because I would never dream of heckling somebody on stage because I understand what it's like to be up there. But in the same sense, I understand that sometimes that audience member thinks that they can improve the show. Whether they're right or wrong, it's usually not so malicious. And so for me, I always try to address a heckler nicely, because if you berate them and you get really aggressive, it can turn the rest of the crowd off of you. And so it's kind of
It
that
can it can ruin the mojo in the entire room for the
yeah,
rest of the night, you know?
yeah. But I mean, I have seen people um berate an audience member and make it hilarious, and it was like the best thing that I've ever seen. So I mean, what do I know?
Yeah, so if they're good at berating the audience and the audience knows that the comedian is very comfortable berating, like Don Rickles was, and Bob Zaney, he does it in a non-mean way, but he takes jabs at the audience, and they're pros at it, and they're funny because they're swinging for the fences. They're not reluctant. They're just like, I'm good at this. This is my thing, so it works,
And
but a
somebody
beginner if a beginner tries it, it's like, what in the world?
yeah, like I saw JJ Lieberman at Wise Guys, and he tore an audience member apart, and it was the funniest thing that I had ever seen. And
Really?
yeah,
Oh my
but
gosh.
he's good. I mean, he's a hilarious guy. And so yeah, if it had gone the other way where it was just weird and awkward, I would have been really surprised. But he made me laugh my ass off. It was great.
Wow. One time before I started comedy, I was in an audience and I was like thinking, I want to do comedy, but I didn't have the guts yet. And there was a guy up there at an open mic, and he said a joke and it bombed. And he said, oh my. And then he said another joke and it bombed. And he goes, oh. And then he said another joke and he goes, I just want to kill myself. So everything he was thinking, he was saying into the mic. And without thinking, I heckled him and I said, just make fun of us Jews. The place erupted and he started making fun of the Jews.
Oh, that's bold.
And it turned it was the funny, it went from bombing to killing like that.
That's awesome.
It was great. It was the greatest thing ever because like there's a lot to make fun of with the Jews. Come on.
Oh
So
yeah,
he
I know
got
it.
permission to do it.
That's great.
So what are you trying to accomplish in the world as a young person? And what are you trying to accomplish in comedy?
I guess in a general sense, I'm just trying to get to a point um where money's not too much of an issue anymore, and I kind of can live a little comfortably and just be happy doing what I like, which is where the comedy comes in. And the ultimate goal, like it'd be silly for me to say that I want to be big and famous and this and that. I just want to make enough money so that I could quit my day job. That's really all I'm looking for. Because if I can do this full time, pay my bills, doing what I enjoy every night, that's the greatest accomplishment that I could ever have or ever ask for.
Wow. And so in order to get to where you can handle yourself financially with comedy, what do you think are the next few steps you're going to try to take in the next year to 5 years? What do you think?
In the next year, it's more just working on having, more time that I can do on stage. Obviously write more than I have been recently, because I've been kind of slow at hitting mics recently. Like the last couple of weeks, I've taken some time off because I'm having a hard time writing. So it's just get to a point where I have more time. And so if somebody comes up to me and offers me a spot that requires 15 to 30 minutes, that I can be confident in saying, yes, I got it. I don't want to turn down opportunities because I'm not confident that I have the material for it.
Got it. And how many minutes do you have that's solid right now, Antonio?
I would say I probably have a solid 10 minutes, and I can maybe stretch it to about 15 if needed. It's going to be rough, but I could stretch.
I got you. I get it. Yeah, that's really great for a first year going into your second year of comedy, though, really.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about what these milestones are supposed to look like. I see some people who've been in it, half as long as I have, and they're already going out with other people doing shows or hosting spots and stuff. I also see people who've been doing it, 4 years who have never got those opportunities. So it's hard
Right.
to really gauge where I'm supposed to be at at what times in this whole thing.
I think everybody's on their own journey, and your journey is yours. And, nobody can tell you, they can't tell you what style of comedy or what your persona is, or like, should you just go to mics 7 days a week, 3 of them a day, or like everybody should just do their own thing and
Yeah.
leave it and quit judging each other. But, I see you out there and you're hilariously funny and always nice. You're not one of these people like, what mood is he in tonight? So that's going to carry you a long way. How far will you go to do comedy in terms of miles?
I mean, it just depends on what day of the week. But if I had a show, let's say in Arizona on a Saturday, I'd make the drive out there. I'm not limited to how far, I'm just limited to when, because I do work a full-time job. So
Because you can
that,
do you travel for guest spots, and you definitely could host. And if somebody is lenient on the 15 minutes and of some 5 minutes of crowd work, you could even feature.
yeah, I mean, that would be great. I just feel like not a lot of the people around here have faith that I could pull it off.
Oh my gosh, I think you could. I think you could. It's difficult getting the stage time to prove it,
Yeah.
because I've been in 7 years and I'm at the level where you're at, where I've got 15, I've done 30 minutes once on Zoom, but that's not 30 minutes in public,
Yeah.
you know. And so getting people to let you do 20 minutes, that's a defining line to being a feature. So I'm still trying to prove that I'm a great host.
So because I started in January of 2020, and then we were all shut down, 3 months later. And I heard about these Zoom shows that people were doing, and I never wanted to try it because it seemed very weird to me. But how was it, that you were doing all these Zoom shows? Did you actually did it feel right, or did it feel weird not being in person with everybody?
Well, I found it to be, number one, it was safe. When everything was going crazy, then I could be at home and not worry about germs and all that. And what I found was there was such a network between um, displaced comedians having a list of every single mic and show around the world, that you could go online and you could link up with somebody doing comedy anywhere in the world and meet people around the world. I've met people in India and Japan and Malaysia and Germany and England. And so now my network, I would have never met these people. And then you get invited onto their shows because they came on a show. So networking wise, great. As far as the technology, if I'm telling a joke and they cough, then people don't hear my punchline. So there's that problem. And then you got people that come on to shows and they turn their mics off. And it's like, could we all have the mics on where you're here to either laugh? Why would you go to like a fashion show and put on blindfolds? You wouldn't,
Yeah.
And so there's downsides, and then I thought, well, I'll just run my own shows. And so now I'm doing these military shows so that, and so like there's always something negative to everything. And no, it's not a perfect world, but you sure build a strong network of people. So you're
Okay.
welcome to come on and do clean comedy anytime on Saturday or Sunday when I do the military shows.
I don't think that's possible, knowing my style.
You
I would
tell
just
some
have,
dad jokes. Come tell
yeah,
some dad jokes.
I would have to read the jokes that were on the little popsicles on the popsicle sticks back in the day. I would just have to read a bunch of those.
That would be great. That would be so funny. And another thing that's really been great for comedians is all of the Zoom things that Antonio, where you can go on and practice comedy in front of other people and they give you feedback. So writing by ourselves is so hard, like you said, but like Rob Chiaffi out in New York, he has jokezoom.com. And then Saness Stevens has a stand-up comedy writing mastermind. There's tons of these around the world where you go on and you go, I'm working on a bit. I don't know where to take it. And you just say it. And then you get 15 people telling you ideas. I've come up with, yeah, when you open yourself up to a bunch of people telling you stuff, you come out with some really good stuff. And it helps you.
Yeah, that's great. I'm very hard, or it's very hard for me to network and stuff like that because I know there's a lot of drama in this comedy community and I'm not for it. Like I said, I work a full-time job. I'm trying to, have this comedy thing take off, so I have no time for it. So a lot of the times you'll see me sitting by myself, drinking my beer or, with my girlfriend, and I just kind of keep to myself because I don't know who's full of drama and I don't want to bring
Yes,
it upon myself.
totally. I totally understand exactly what you're saying. Oh my gosh. So everywhere you go, there's like always some kind of nonsense that doesn't need to happen. I have sat in a bucket full of tears so many times, and I've quit comedy probably more times than I've gone on stage because of all, I love the being on stage. I hate the business side,
Yeah.
that stuff. Well, what would you like to say to people in closing? Like, to anybody, I know you're young and I'm old and you think you have nothing to say, but you do. You have a lot to say from your perspective, and what you have to say is very important. So you made it through a pandemic, you made it out living on your own, you've got a girlfriend, you're staying out of drama. What would you like to tell, how would you like to encourage people that might be watching? This is your chance to close the deal on taking my fans and having them.
I guess the biggest thing, it'll be more self-serving than anything, is just support comedians. I know if they're listening to your show, they're probably a comic or they support comedians, but I feel like that's the biggest thing is supporting live comedy and a lot of these open mics, even if you're not a comedian, try to seek these things out and come hang out, sit in the audience and let us know if we're funny or not. Because sometimes we do this all the time, every day of the week, a couple times a night, and we go home and we feel like shit. So if we have real audience members coming out, it would really it would change the attitude of most of these shows. So I feel
Yeah.
like that's the biggest thing is just supporting comedians in their trying to get out of the turmoil of their life and, make you laugh. That's the best thing that I could say.
I love that. Thank you so much. Where do you want people to follow you on
Um,
social media?
you can follow my Instagram. Um, sorry, I have terrible memory, so I have to pull it up real quick so I don't get it wrong. I believe my Instagram is A_Hernandez_comedy. So go follow my Instagram there. And then I also have a YouTube channel. It's Seriously Inappropriate on YouTube, where I just started my new podcast called The Whitest Mexican You Know. And last week I had Roscoe Witherspoon on, and it was
Wow.
a great show. And then today I'm recording with AJ Rivera, and that'll be out in the next couple days.
And what's the premise of your podcast?
It's a short interview, like maybe 20-30 minutes of getting to know that specific comic, and then I'll bring up videos that I found on the internet and have us react to it and talk some shit, make some jokes, and yeah, that's pretty much the basis.
That's wonderful. Awesome. How's it been going with the podcast?
So far, it's great. People really liked the one I did with Roscoe Witherspoon. And on that YouTube channel, on Seriously Inappropriate, you can find the old podcast that I did with my non-comedian buddy. Him and I did it for a long time, so they're just old episodes of that on there, which is pretty much the same premise as just bringing up videos, reacting to it, and talking some shit. But it's been going pretty well. I like doing it.
Yeah, well, congratulations. Congratulations on stepping out and doing comedy. And you guys book him. He's willing to travel. He said Arizona. He can host, he can do a guest spot, he can feature with 5 minutes of crowd work right at this point, but that will increase, his time will increase. So give him a shot. Everybody can use a shot. So
Oh yeah.
there you go. Thank you so much, Antonio Hernandez, everybody.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad I was able to do this.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll share this and I'm sure people will watch and you'll get some new fans and take mine away from me. It's okay. I don't care. Love you lots. Bye.
Thank you.
Mhm.